All right, we are running. There's always a dramatic pause between when I click the record button and when it actually seems to start recording, so that's why there's a couple of seconds of me just looking weirdly into the camera. So today's lecture is going to be on Immanuel Kant. And Kant is a really interesting figure in philosophy. And as we work through his philosophy today, and as you kind of investigate some of his ideas over the next couple of days with your assignments and your engagement on the discussion board, I think you'll find that Kant plays a very rigorous role in philosophy, and that's certainly to be the case. That in particular, Kant is the closest thing that we will get to in this short 4-week course of kind of an objective philosopher, if it were. And what I mean by that is that, as we'll see by the end of the couple of lectures today, that Kant indeed gives us a tool, he gives us a measurement by which to gauge our morality, to gauge our moral actions. And, in more or less terms, that very well may be seen to be objective. Okay? And we'll investigate that near the end of some of our discussions today. Excuse me. Kant lived in the 1700s. He's one of our most notable theists. He's an unapologetic believer in God. He was a Lutheran in particular. And I think that his kind of rigidity in his philosophy really shines through. That as a figure and as a man, Kant was an interesting person, where he was a lifelong bachelor, for better or for worse. He also was apparently so routine that his neighbors would set their clocks by his afternoon walks. So just imagine that you're sitting in your apartment, and every day you look outside and you see Kant walk by, and you say, oh, well, it must be about 3:10. And you look down at your watch, or you pull out your pocket watch, and indeed it's 3:10. That Kant was very, very rigid. He was very, very routine in his behavior and in his lifestyle. He never, ever left his home city of Königsberg. I think that's how you pronounce it. But nevertheless said that he was very cosmopolitan. So the idea here, in this kind of image of this person, as a very rigid thinker, as a very focused thinker, I think really imparts and really kind of influences the type of philosophy that we get from Kant. Okay? So again, he never left his hometown, lifelong bachelor, a theist, and as we'll see, and I'll try, to be pretty diligent about this, but he is very, very opposed to Humean thought. Okay? Opposed to the thoughts of Hume that we just covered a couple of days ago. The David Hume, okay? David Hume was focused on the emotions, focused on the passions, focused on the feelings, right? Where Kant is said to have been awakened from his dogmatic slumber by the writings of David Hume. That Kant is so famously claimed to have been awakened from his philosophical or his dogmatic slumbers by the writings of David Hume. This idea that he's going along, he's doing his thing, and then ultimately, right, he reads some of what David Hume has to write, and he's appalled. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is utterly wrong. This is incorrect. Right? And to that end, he starts to write voluminously. He starts to write vigorously about what it is and how it is he thinks morality ought to be understood. And so just a couple of works just to kind of show the breadth of literature that Kant does. That this is the Critique of Pure Reason. This is Kant on the cover. So maybe that's why he was a lifelong bachelor. Just kidding. That's a bad joke. Not an unattractive guy. But yeah, very voluminous here. Right? Lots of things to be said. It's all quite dry. A lot of it translated from German. Again, very rigid, very focused, very passionate. This is where some of our work will come from. It's called The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals. Okay? And we'll see where and what we get with that here in just a little while. Okay? And then just another little short little book called the Prolegomena. There it is. That still seems pronounced wrong. On any future metaphysics. Okay? And these are just a couple of his works. That in particular, Kant, like I said, wrote voluminously and has imparted kind of the course of Western philosophy as a whole. That if you were to kind of start with Immanuel Kant and the way that he influenced, there was a couple of thinkers that came after him that were particularly influenced by his thought, and some of the notable names, there's a guy named Hegel, who was after Kant, influenced by Kantian thought. And then from Hegel, we have Karl Marx, the economist and philosopher who wrote the Communist Manifesto. We also have Friedrich Nietzsche and a handful of others, all kind of stemming from kind of the focus and the power of Kant. And so with that, I'll stop this short video. I'm going to change positions because I think the lighting isn't that great right here. And then we will come back and we will start to get into his actual philosophy.